morning, everybody. Welcome to MANP Connects. My name is Jennifer Hutchins. I'm the Executive Director of the Maine Association of Nonprofits. And we started this MANP Connects program during the famous March 2020 lockdown. We started in April when we realized we wanted to be having an opportunity to connect with our members across the big state of Maine to see how they were doing and to facilitate communication. And we discovered from that experience how valuable that was and how it really lifted us up as a team here at MANP. And we kept hearing from all of you that you also found it valuable. So we have been doing it since April of 2020. And at this point, we do it once a month on Fridays, and we go from 9 to 9:45 so that we can get you out there and either working or starting your weekend or meditating and relaxing or doing all the incredible things that you do to support Maine communities. So thank you for being here. And I hope today is a session that provides you with some inspiration or information that makes your day a little bit better and a little bit lighter and makes you feel like you're part of a really important network that's making Maine's communities super strong and one of the best places to visit. Today, we're going to be talking about some government policies that have been implemented, the first of which has been around for a long time. It was actually, nope, I'm not going to tell the history. I'm going to let my guest tell the history because I don't want to get it wrong, but it's a public service student loan forgiveness program that has been around for a long time. And it is a way that our government is supporting employers and their employees who have been dedicated to public service and nonprofit service for many years and recognizing that service through some student loan forgiveness. So we're going to be talking about that. And then I have other guests who are located a little bit more close to where we are in our home state and talking about how state government, Maine state government is supporting people, employers and people with student loans and some policies that are here in the state of Maine. So let me make sure I start off with the important announcements. We are recording today's program, so you will have access to that. If there's information that gets shared today that you want to learn here again, that will be available to you. And I already mentioned, please mute yourselves, turn off the camera, but please feel free to use the chat box to ask questions and to chat with one another. Our whole team here at MANP is here on the call, and they will be there live in chat helping you while I'm talking with our guests. So please don't hesitate to use the chat box. Offering your insights respectfully to each other and honoring this great space that we've created together through MANP Connects in support of one another. So without further ado, I'm very excited to invite to the screen Tiffany from the National Council of Nonprofits. How are you, Tiffany Carter, this morning?
Good morning, Jennifer. I'm good. I'm happy to be with you in Maine. It's been a while.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it has been. Hey, everybody, I've been working with Tiffany since I came to the Maine Association of Nonprofits. Tiffany leads policy work for the National Council of Nonprofits, our very close partners in Washington, D.C. However, I do want to point out that because of technology, you wouldn't know potentially, except for the clock behind her and maybe those incredibly beautiful baskets, that Tiffany's actually calling us from Kigali, Rwanda. This morning. She and her family are living in Kigali at the moment and working remotely, and we're really glad that that is working out. She's been an incredible resource to nonprofits and state associations across the United States on really complex national policy that impacts our nonprofits. So thank you, Tiffany, for being here this afternoon, a content away, and we're so grateful for you to talk about the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program today.
Absolutely. I'm glad to join you. I've joined your call before, so it's cool to be a presenter, and thanks for having me. I will say you have one of the most active chat boxes I've seen on one of these calls, so please feel free to chat in if you have any questions. But wanted to talk about the public service loan forgiveness a little bit. So this is a program that was started in 2007. I don't want to bury the lead. If I skip this, and people will be like, what are you talking about? So the Biden administration just announced a $10,000 debt cancellation program. and up to $20,000 if you have Pell Grants. What I want to talk about is public service loan forgiveness, which is separate. You can and should apply for both. So just putting that out there right now, being clear, I don't want you to like walk away and say, what was that $10,000 thing? So yes, that exists. Yes, you should care about, and yes, you should apply. But what you really need to do right now is care about public service loan forgiveness because there is a deadline of October 31st. And what this program is, it was started in 2007. I know Jennifer kind of alluded to this earlier. It's 2007. It's gone through 4 different administrations. It is not controversial. It is not partisan. Like, this is a very good program specifically for nonprofits. So everyone on this call, it will either apply to you or one of your employees or one of your friends. Like, it really matters. So what it does is, after making 120 payments, so if you make 10 years of payments and you work for a nonprofit or government agency and you do public service, you can have the remainder of your federal loans forgiven. So this isn't $10,000. This is the rest of whatever loans you have at the end of the 10 years. What it really means is it's mostly whatever interest you've accrued over those 10 years, you can apply and get it completely forgiven. Why we care about it right now is there is an October 31st deadline that you need to apply to get in this queue, and it will count additional payments that might not have counted before. So if you've been denied before, if you were in forbearance, if you were in the wrong repayment plan, like, there's all these problems that have happened over the last 10 years. They're trying to fix it, but you have to be in the queue by the end of this month. So that's why I'm here. And there's a couple breakdowns. So one, if you are a CEO, if you're a CEO on this call right now, make sure you tell every single one of your employees. If you are looking to hire people right now, this is a really great hiring tool to attract and retain talent because it only applies to certain workers who work for you. If you're an HR representative, be prepared to sign the application form. You need to have your address, which I'm sure as an HR person, you already know this off the top of your head. You need to know your phone number, you need to know your website address, and then you need to know your EIN. And other than that, you sign it, give it back to the employee, and they turn it in. And if you are an employee with student debt, federal student debt, this is your chance right now to get ahead and get some forgiveness. So I don't know if you have any questions, but I did have a couple quick slides. Kelly, if you could throw those up, they're really, really simple. I just wanted to show you the actual form because people are kind of afraid of like what this means, how long it's going to take, what it's going to do for you. So this is all you need to fill out the form. And most of these things, I think everyone on this call will know by heart. So it'll only take you like however fast you type to fill it out. The only thing that might take a little bit of difficulty is if you don't remember when you started working at wherever you work. And 2, if you don't know your EIN number, which your HR person should know. You can also look it up on GuideStar or IRS. Next slide. So this is where you can fill it out. You can go to studentaid.gov/PSLF. There's a help tool. It will ask you all these questions and actually fill out the form for you. And then you just print it out and send it into your student loan servicer, which is probably Mohila. I think majority of student loans got turned over to that. You can also go straight through the help tool and look up their fax number or their physical address if you need to do it that way. It really only takes the amount of time to like fill it out. And then if you don't have a printer, you can that's kind of the thing that slows people down. So quick question. The 10/31 deadline has to do with getting additional payments, but will the PSLF program general continue? Yes. Great question. And the answer is yes, 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 yes. It will continue. It's just, we're just trying to get in this queue before people miss out on these payments. So afterwards and continuing, yes, please use it as a hiring tool. I just saw it on a couple, job listings the other day, highlighted in blue, like this job qualifies for PSLF. And if you're a worker, that does kind of set you apart. Do all 501c3 employers qualify? Yes, all 501c3s are written into the statute that they absolutely qualify. So you don't need to double guess anything. It's very, very clear. You are muted, Jennifer, if you're.
I'm not used to ever being muted, so just to completely underscore this. So a brand new person who got out, graduated from college in June or May or June, and has become a new employee at a nonprofit, and maybe just at the beginning of trying to grapple with their federal student loans. You even recommended them starting to have a relationship with this office, correct? And should they
Yes.
fill out this form?
Yes. So if you are brand new, you've only been on the job for 1 day, you should still fill out the form so that you're in the queue and so that the Department of Education knows you exist. Because the problem is that they are trying to find these people who may have worked at a nonprofit before or have kind of gaps in their employment. This goes back to one of your questions in the chat box. Yes, you can have gaps in your employment. You can leave the sector, you can come back. It can be previous employers. I filled out one just the other day for 2014 and got 4 more payments counted. So all of that counts. But if you were brand new, you've never worked in the sector before, you should fill it out at least yearly, just so that you're keeping your certification current and they know that you are actually employed at a nonprofit, and that way they'll know to be counting your payments towards PSLF.
There's another question in here about full-time. Do you have to have full-time positions, and then also public school teachers?
Okay, so I'll take public school teachers first. They're a little, you should still fill out the form. So if you're a public school teacher, or you have someone who you know who's still fill out the waiver form, which is the same form on the website that we just put up, studentaid.gov/PSLF. But they count differently. And so I'm not an expert on public school teachers, but like they count differently. So still apply. And then I would recommend reaching out to the American Federation of Teachers. They've been really, really active. So they know all the like intricacies of where your standards are. As for full-time, you have to be full-time, but they changed the definition of full-time. So you could have, up until recently, you had to be full-time, but you could be working in 2 different part-time positions at 2 qualifying employers that add up to be full-time, which under that definition was 30 hours a week. If you only work at one organization, you had to be full-time as defined by that organization. However, under the waiver, that has been waived, and so you only have to have worked 30 hours a week. So even if you were part-time, but you worked 30 hours a week, that period of employment will also count. They're trying to make that permanent, but that's not permanent as of yet. So that's why you also need to fill out this waiver as soon as possible. So the definition of full-time for the purposes of this answer right now is 30 hours a week, regardless of what your employer counted it.
Okay, and then you also have a question here. Tiffany, do you mean that the form should use the information of your first qualifying employer or your current one?
All of your qualifying employers. So you need to fill it out individually for each employer. So if you are a brand new, right out of grad school, and you're now working at a nonprofit, this will be your first time filling it out, and you should do that right away. If you have worked at 3 different nonprofits and maybe you left and came back, you went to for-profit, etc., you have to fill it out for each one and turn those in. So if you don't if you don't know their EIN, if you don't have contacts with that organization anymore, maybe they closed, maybe you burned a bridge and your boss was horrible and you don't want to talk to them again, still fill it out, and then you can use other paperwork to prove that you worked there. So you can put in like a W-2 or something else, but just fill it out, even if you don't know the information, and get in the queue and then worry about that after the fact. But there is a button saying like, I worked there before, I don't have contacts there anymore. Yes, this applies to both grad school and undergrad. It applies to law school, it applies to MPHs, MBAs, Masters of Public Policy, MPA, whatever, grad school, law school, undergrad.
The important distinction, correct, is that it's a federal student loan.
Yes, and so that is the answer to Molly's question. Federal loans, but under this waiver, and this is why this is so important, is they're counting different types of federal loans. So FFEL loans, like a bunch of different loans that normally wouldn't count under public service loan forgiveness are being counted right now. You might need to consolidate. So if you had a private loan, federal loan held by a private insurance or private servicer. You can consolidate and have them count as well, but that's an individual thing. There's a button under the help tool that will walk you through that. Just go through the process.
I'm being reminded, Tiffany, that and then you can get to James's question, but I want to reassure everyone that that the National Council offered a webinar just a few days ago that you recorded, and Kelly's reminding me that there were a lot of questions like this that were answered in that webinar, right? Do you want to talk a second about that and then take James's question, and then I just want to reassure everybody that we do have answers to questions if they keep rolling in.
Yep. So we did a national webinar. We had I think we had 2,000 registrants. They answer all these types of like intricate questions with experts who deal with this every day. The Department of Education was on the call and they answered these questions. If it's an hour long, if you don't have the whole hour, we also have a 6-minute video starring yours truly, who will walk through a couple of these questions as well with Department of Ed. And then we are putting up, I believe on Monday, a how-to video, which will just show you the actual form and like where to click if you have any questions. It's really easy though. You can do it. You're very intelligent people and it doesn't require a very intelligent person to fill this out. So James's question, it would presumably need to be 10 years of employment after grad school. It's 10 years of employment after you've accrued the loan. So you can't like still be in school and count towards it, if that makes sense, because you have to be a full-time employee. You have to be full-time, which is 30 hours a week as well. So yeah, but if you took time off before grad school and have undergrad loans and we're working for a qualifying employer, then that might work. So just fill out the form and deal with the follow-up if there is follow-up, but there probably won't be at this stage.
And so I just want to reassure everybody again, Kelly's putting a lot of these links in our chat box, and MANP will continue to be here for you and be a liaison before you to all of the resources that Tiffany and the National Council are putting out. So please don't worry if you have to rush off and do some other things for the next few days, and then Monday morning you go, what did they say? How did that work? Please reach out to one of us at the Maine Association of Nonprofits. Our emails are available, and or give us a call and we can point you in the right direction. So I just want to reassure everybody that you're not missing anything. We have Martha from FAME who's going to be joining us in just a second, but I wanted to give Tiffany the last word. Tell me something about this program, and I didn't prep you for this question, so forgive me, but I just want you to sort of take us out with your impression of the importance of this program and what it's doing for nonprofit employers right now.
I mean, I personally rely on this. My husband relies on this. We wouldn't be doing the jobs that we do without it. We'd probably be lawyers at a firm and, maybe not happy. So this is something that allows your organization to continue to attract the people that you want to work for you and be dedicated to the missions that you do. It allows you to stand apart from the competition that's in the workplace right now. And so there's a lot of people out there who rely on this and can rely on this that you should be looking to work for you and to continue to work for you. But I will stay on, I'll go off camera, but I'm happy to stay online and can answer more questions in the chat if you'd like me to, Jennifer. And
thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad and I know you have to catch a plane soon because you're coming home for a short visit. So safe travels to you. Thank you so much. And we appreciate you sticking around for a few minutes. Now I'm going to ask Martha to join me, Martha Johnston from the Finance Authority of Maine. She is a tremendous resource right here in our own state. And she's going to, hi, Martha, how are you this morning?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. So tell us a little bit more about FAME and what your role is in the state and some of the resources that FAME has for nonprofit staff and their employers.
Sure. So the Finance Authority of Maine is actually an independent state agency. We're not a nonprofit, but I like to tell people I am not an employee of the state of Maine, but when the governor's office or the legislature calls, we do jump. So we are a creature of the legislature. We were created through statute. So the Finance Authority of Maine works on economic development work as well as workforce development in the form of helping people afford education after high school. So our education division actually administers programs like the 529 College Savings Program, the Maine State Grant Program, but we also have a whole host of counseling information that we provide. We have college access counselors that help families fill out the application for federal student aid. We actually do a lot of student loan repayment counseling. And so that's what's really relevant for today's conversation as we talk about PSLF, or if we talk about the student debt relief, which Tiffany did a great job. Let's not bury the lead, but let's not confuse them, right? So we've got the student debt relief, which is either $10,000 or $20,000 of debt forgiveness, debt relief you can experience. And we've got this 1031 deadline looming for public service loan forgiveness. So what I would say to all your members, feel free to reach out to famemaine.com or education@famemaine.com with any questions that you might have related to the debt relief program. I'm calling it the Biden-Harris debt relief for lack of a better way to describe it, so that it doesn't get mixed up with public service loan forgiveness. But we are also doing a lot of counseling for Maine borrowers about public service loan forgiveness and how to make sure they do what they need to do by October 31st in order to get in the queue, as Tiffany says, and to get payments that would otherwise not have counted to count now. Having said that, one other thing I think I was asked to talk about, and I'm really pleased to be able to share this. I know at least 4 people, probably 5, who have directly benefited from the waiver. One of them is actually my own staff person who received forgiveness. For 20 years of working here at the Finance Authority of Maine, she didn't realize she could have qualified. So she took advantage of the waiver and her loans were forgiven, and it was life altering for her. So that was amazing. I also have other people who I've just encountered recently. One was an IT person that works at Northern Light, but it's a nonprofit. And he took advantage of the waiver and his student loans have been forgiven. Another one is actually a physician. So these are real stories. It really does happen. It matters where you work, so that you're working at that nonprofit or in a government entity. And the other thing I'll say, and Tiffany did a great job talking about this, but use that PSLF tool. It is super easy to use. And I think she gave the example of if you're a new graduate and you haven't even started paying your loans yet, use the tool anyway. And I actually did that with my own son who graduated in 2021, works at Maine Health. We went in, it pre-populated his employer certification so that he too could start the process of saying, hey, I work at a nonprofit and I have student loans and I want to work toward my 120 payments so that I could get student loan forgiveness one day. So great information shared from Tiffany. And then I'll just say you've got a really close resource here at FAME. So famemaine.com, right in the middle of our website, you'll see important information about federal student loans. We're trying to keep all that information very easy to find, whether it's about PSLF or the Biden-Harris loan forgiveness, anything that you need. And then education@famemaine.com if you have questions. But I'm also happy to answer any questions people might have today.
I really appreciate that, Martha. That's perfect. One thing I have to admit I'm a little confounded by, and maybe you can help me, which is how most of our nonprofits in Maine are very small, right? We consider ourselves very similar to small businesses. With some of our nonprofits only have 1 or 2 staff. Maine, here at MANP, we have 8 staff, and in the grand world of nonprofits, that's considered small, but actually in Maine, we're considered in the top 10%. How do employers find out about these programs? Like, what is the I'm just curious what the dissemination and awareness campaigns are so that people can find out that these are even options. Like, would your son have known about it if he didn't have a mom who did it for a living?
Yeah, you're right. I think the larger the organization, and depending on the HR folks in capacity, they've been able to tap into this and they'll share that information. But I think it's really interesting because we've made a wonderful connection today between FAME and between MANP, because the reality is we actually just started our own employer outreach about 2 years ago. So we'll be reaching out to you to say, okay,
Great.
How can we reach out to your members? Because we just want to make sure your HR people have the information they need. If it's just information they want, we'll provide it. If they even want us to come in, we actually have college savings counselors who will come in and talk about preparing for the cost of education, but we can come in and we can talk about student loan repayment and managing student loan repayment. So We really think of ourselves as supporting Maine people on the continuum of college affordability, whether they're preparing or they're in the middle of paying for it, or they're on the back end managing student loan repayment. So we are just one resource, but I will say that I have been very impressed by the National Council. I sat through that webinar the other day with Betsy
Oh, great.
Mayotte. Yeah, it was wonderful. So, you know, I think there's a lot of national resources that are wonderful, but then you've got us as well, and we'll do everything we can to help support making sure you have that information, especially for the smaller organizations, because where do you find it?
Yeah,
Great.
great. Well, thank you, Martha. I appreciate that. And this is no reflection on your statement, but I can just, again, like I can sense what the audience is thinking. And when you said your HR people, I would venture to guess more than half just started laughing.
Yeah, sorry.
Like,
Get
what
it.
HR people? We don't have HR people in the nonprofit sector. We're all
Sorry.
out there doing the mission, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that's sort of, that can be the challenge of being nonprofits, is we're so busy trying to do what we do. And we're incentivized, unfortunately, over incentivized to make sure all of our dollars go straight to the people we're trying to support or the missions that we're trying to achieve. And as a result, sometimes these things like these programs just go right over our heads because we're so busy trying to do that work. So I'm just so excited that we've been able to make such a strong connection to you and to your team and your colleagues at FAME, because we really do want to build up this awareness that there are policymakers and we, the people, are choosing to support nonprofits in really important ways. And we need to share that information with one another, because we know how tough it is for employers right now across the board. Doesn't matter what sector you're working in, but I'm biased that in the nonprofit sector in particular, there are people who are trying to get some really good work done, but it's really, really challenging to make ends meet sometimes as a staff person doing direct service. So thank you for your service. Thank you for being enthusiastic and being a willing resource. We will continue this really strong relationship with you, started with FAME. And thank you for coming here this morning. I'm assuming you're working from home?
I'm actually not. I'm in Augusta, so I'm
good for you. Back to Augusta.
So yes.
Okay, good. Excellent. I think it was the soccer playing
Oh, the
kid.
soccer playing photos. Yes. Well, always have a little bit of home right in my office.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you for your time. I'm gonna go ahead and invite our third guest. And thank you so much, Martha. Dr. Mike Allen, who's coming from the Department of Finance Administration. Hi, Mike.
Hi, how are you today?
Good. How are you doing? You're here
Excellent.
to talk to us about, well, first, what does the Department of Finance and Administration do?
I think we're the second largest department in state government after the Department of Health and Human Services in terms of employees. And the name says it all. We're sort of the administrative arm of state government. So we have the Bureau of Human Resources, the Office of Information Technology, Buildings and Grounds. So sort of the back room operations of state government. And then on the finance side, it's the Office of the State Controller, the Bureau of the Budget, the State Economist, and Maine Revenue Services, which is where my office is located. So it really does a broad range of services for state government.
And you've been working for the state government for a while.
25 years.
Yeah, great. What's your favorite part of your job?
My favorite part of the job, just getting involved in a lot of different issues. I know people think taxes is boring, but everybody's trying to do policy through the tax system.
Yeah.
So we get involved in education tax credits, health
Yeah.
policy, economic development policy. So it's
Yeah.
interesting to be able to talk to colleagues across state government.
Yeah, great. Yes, exactly. And you get to work with people like Dr. Charlie Colgan, who used to be the state economist, and now
Correct.
Amanda Rector, who's a really wonderful colleague of mine. I went to the Muskie School of Public Service and majored in public policy and management, and
great.
have been able to work with a lot of the people I'm sure that you've come across. And so you will not find somebody who finds tax policy boring. I know that it's actually kind of the engine of how things get allocated around here. So, but anyway, we came here to talk about a tax credit program that you would like to share with our audience today.
Sure, it's the new student loan repayment tax credit. And just to give a little bit of background, the state since 2008 has had a tax credit for taxpayers paying back their student loans. It was called the Education Opportunity Tax Credit. And that tax credit started out as a very narrow tax credit. You had to be a Maine resident. You had to attend a Maine community college or university. You had to work in Maine after graduating. If that was the case, you were eligible for the credit. Over many years, the legislature kept on sort of expanding the credit to make more people eligible for it. And while that was great, the problem was that each time they expanded the program, they only did it prospectively, meaning it was
Mhm.
only for people that graduated after a certain date that was eligible for the more expanded program.
Mhm.
And so it was just all these different, depending upon what year you graduated, the rules were different for you. And probably the biggest change that they made that became a huge problem, both from administering the credit and for taxpayers, was the STEM degree benefit. And if you graduated from college with a STEM degree, you were eligible for a refundable credit, which means not only did the credit offset your tax liability, but the state would actually make a payment to you to cover the additional credit. The problem was, what is a STEM degree? And while that sounds obvious to everybody, well, it's science, technology, engineering, and math.
Mhm.
Because those were the only degrees eligible for the refundability, everybody wanted to claim their major, their degree was eligible for a STEM degree. So, economics degree. Well, economists have to take a lot of math, computer science, statistics,
Right?
right?
Yeah.
That must be a STEM degree, right? So,
Right.
I mean, it just became very complicated. So over the last few years, there's been a concerted effort both from the administration and the legislature to try and simplify the tax credit program to make more people eligible and to make it less complex. Because what we were hearing from employers like you folks
Mhm.
was, we want to use this as a recruiting tool,
Mhm.
both to retain people here in the state and to attract employees to the state. And we don't understand it. It's very complex. And when we're talking to a recruit, we don't want to promise something that they're ultimately not going to be eligible for,
Right, of
because
course, right. Yeah,
they
right.
graduated in
Right.
2009, and they had originally went to the University of New Hampshire for one semester and then transferred to the University of Maine, and that makes them ineligible.
Right.
So it just wasn't working because of its complexity. So this last session, given the state's finances, the governor put a proposal in front of the legislature. The legislature enacted it, basically eliminated the old education opportunity tax credit and created the new student loan repayment tax credit.
Mm.
So just the name too, I think is an important change. Educational opportunity tax credit. I don't think anybody really understood what that meant.
Mhm.
We're hoping student loan repayment tax credit's a little clearer to people when they're filling out their taxes. But this one is just simple to describe. Are you a Maine resident? Yes. Did I earn a associate's, bachelor's, or graduate degree after 2007? Yes. Did I make student loans this year? Yeah. Student loan payments this year? Yes. Well, I'm eligible up to $2,500
Mm.
credit, and it's refundable for
Mm.
everybody. Doesn't matter whether it's a STEM degree, non-STEM degree, graduate degree, associate's degree, everybody's eligible for a refundable credit up to $2,500.
Wow, that's
Easy to
a huge
explain.
improvement.
Yes, yes.
So can you walk us through a little bit, Mike, if there's somebody on the call who is working at a nonprofit and could answer yes to those questions for you? Can you walk us through what literally they would do? So this is a process they would start simply when they start filling out their taxes in 2023?
Correct. So there will be a worksheet available online, and if you're using software, it should be part of the software package that you purchase. That will lead you through all the information that's needed to be eligible for the $2,500 credit, just like any other tax credit that you would take on a federal or state tax return.
Yeah, I appreciate the name change, and the confusing factor is because we just talked about 2 federal loan forgiveness programs, right? And so the name is good, but we do need to really be very clear with people that these are 3 very separate mechanisms by which someone who's working in the nonprofit sector in Maine may qualify for some forgiveness or remuneration. And so that's why I'm just trying to be super clear that this program is a state-based program that is about a tax credit when you file your taxes. And so, Mike, will Martha know about this program? Or do they contact your office? How best does someone find out more about how they could access this program?
We've been actually working with FAME, some colleagues of Martha's that have been involved in the working with the legislature to create the new student loan credit. And I know they're out there marketing it as well. I think Live and Work in Maine has a contract to market the credit as well. Maine Revenue Services isn't really a marketing sort of agency, but I would say within the next month or so, we will have the 2022 tax forms on our website for people to start looking at.
Great.
And we do plan on having some FAQs on our website too about the new student loan repayment tax credit.
Great, thank you. Annie from our audience had the question, does the student loan repayment tax credit apply to any type of student loan, federal and private, or is it specific to one type of loan?
No, as long as you're making the loan repayment, right? Your parents aren't making it for you, or somebody else isn't making the loan for you. As long as you are directly making student loan payments, you're eligible.
It could be for private loans.
Correct.
Okay, interesting. Great to know. Okay, and so can you talk again, you mentioned this already as a solution for employers in the workforce. Can you talk a little bit more though, just to underscore that point about how this policy, you mentioned Live and Work in Maine, because if how employers can use this as a recruitment tool?
Yes. So, I mean, what we were hearing from employers over the years is that, you're trying to attract somebody to the state to work here. Oftentimes they're looking at possible jobs in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and the Boston area. Maine's tax system does tend to be a little bit higher, particularly higher than New Hampshire. Our wages sometimes can be a little bit lower than other states, particularly Massachusetts. And we heard from a number of employers that they were trying to use this credit as sort of, all right, yes, our tax is a little high, but look, we have this tax credit for student loan repayment that can really lower your taxes quite a bit. $2,500 at the state level is a relatively large tax credit. This again, it's federal taxes obviously are much more, income taxes are much more than at the state level. So, and the other thing I would point out too, for joint filers, both spouses are eligible for the $2,500 credit. So a joint return can get up to $5,000 of refundable credit.
Yeah,
so
that's really important.
It's a big issue.
Yeah.
But I think what we were hearing, employers were hoping to use this as a marketing tool to try and get people to locate here in Maine and work with them.
Marcia has a really interesting question. What about someone who can say yes to all your questions, but they happen to be working remotely for a nonprofit in another state?
That's another simplification. You have to be working as a Maine resident. So I can be living in New York and commuting down to Boston every day. I'm eligible. I can be working here in Portland, Maine, but my employer is located in California. I'm eligible.
Wow, that's great. That's a really powerful incentive. I've been working prior to working at MANP. I worked in economic development for the city of Portland, and we've been talking about the need for the state of Maine to recruit and retain workers and support the workers who are here. That's an incredibly important incentive. This was this particular policy, Mike, you said was passed with the last legislature. Is that correct? So it's relatively new?
Correct. And the 2022 tax year is the first year that it's available. So it's available right away, really.
Great.
When you
And
file your tax return in next
this is
spring.
an interesting question. Kristen has asked, is there somewhere where we could have a flyer to add to our new hire packet or to send employees annually to let them know of these options? I know that you said the Maine Revenue Service isn't exactly a marketing firm, but is there sort of a good place to point people to that summarizes some of these things?
I sent something to Kelly that isn't a formal document, but
Yeah.
passed it around the office, made sure that everything was correct in it.
Okay.
So you can certainly use that again. Probably later this year, we'll have information on our website that
Great.
would be available too.
Great. And I'm also gonna hopefully this is one of those careful what the executive director says in public moment, but I know our team here, and I'm sure that we will have a section on our website to support all of you who are hiring people into nonprofits in Maine. And Kelly's already put those links on the site. We'll make sure all of this gets added to our site. So thank you so much, Mike. We really, really appreciate your time here today. I'm really, really grateful for your time this morning. I hope you have a great weekend.
Okay, you too. Take care.
Okay, take care. Okay, everybody. Wow. I learned a lot today. First of all, I learned that I graduated a little too long ago, but that's okay. The important thing for me is that we are coming up with together with our partners in state government and in the federal government and our elected officials, AKA elections matter. Get out the vote, folks. We're going to be voting in just a few days. And it's these people that we are electing that are making decisions that lead to programs like these. So it matters. It makes a difference. It makes a difference in our lives. It makes a difference in our employees' lives. There are positive solutions out there that are making a difference, and it's not always perfect. And democracy can be messy, and it can be hard, and it can take a long time. And once I was told in public policy school, democracy works when both parties at the table walk away disappointed. It can be grueling, but information like today is to demonstrate that there are people in our court who are trying to come up with incentives and solutions to the really challenging problems of our day. So I'm hoping you're feeling a little bit more supported, a little bit more inspired, and we will continue to be here to support you. And what Kelly has demonstrated that, and other members of our team, Tiffany, Martha, Mike, thank you all for your public service, for your nonprofit service. I'm so excited about today's program. I failed to thank our sponsors, Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, Maine Biz, and Wipfli. These are Wipfli provided me with a coffee mug last time, and I took it home and my daughters confiscated it. It's in a teenager's bedroom somewhere. I'm sorry, Wipfli, but thank you for being our sponsors. We really, really value our partnerships with those three. Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, they're a nonprofit themselves. Maine Biz, great publication, and Wipfli, a full service accounting firm with offices here in Maine. So great. Thank you all. Next week, come back for MANP Connects, November 18th. We're going to be talking about leadership transitions. You heard about the Great Resignation, right? Well, it's also called the Great Transition, and change can be good if we prepare for it. So next time we're going to be talking to people who've gone through it with some tips and tricks and some suggestions. My computer says 9:45. I think that means boom, I nailed it. Have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. It was great to be in community with all of you.